Today I am making pan de muerto, or bread of the dead. It is a traditional bread made for Dia de los Muertos, which is celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. Depending on the locality though, many include the 31st of October by setting up their ofrendas or offerings earlier. It is believed that the spirits of the dead return to the living during this time, and the bread is a way to honor and feed them. For this recipe, we're going to need about 500 grams or 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of active dry yeast, 100 grams or half a cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 80 grams of butter at room temperature, plus about 30 grams to brush the bread after we finish baking it, 80 grams of unsalted margarine at room temperature as well, plus a little bit for your bowls and pans. We're gonna need 4 large eggs at room temperature. We're also gonna need orange zest from 2 oranges, which I have already zested here, and 60 milligrams of warm water at about 110 degrees to activate the yeast. Also, 1 teaspoon of orange extract, 1 large egg beaten at the end to brush, and sugar to decorate once we're done. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna get my 4 eggs and I'm gonna put them here in my mixer. Okay, then I'm adding my unsalted butter here, the salt, and then we're gonna do half the sugar. So about a 1/4 cup of sugar in there, and with the paddle attachment, I'm just gonna go ahead and get that started for about 2 minutes and get it mixed up. All right, so after those 2 minutes, I'm gonna start adding my flour in small amounts, and I'm gonna alternate with the water so I don't get it all in there at once. All right, I got my water, my flour in there. I'm gonna go ahead and add my yeast as well. Let that mix up. All right, now that the yeast is incorporated with that there, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna add one at a time. I'm gonna add my salted butter here. Then I'm going to add my orange zest, the rest of the sugar, and then lastly, that teaspoon of orange extract. And we're gonna let that mix up for about another 2 minutes. Okay, so that is done mixing. I'm gonna flour my surface here because I'm gonna take this out. And you're gonna knead it by hand for a couple more minutes. So. Got a nice dough already formed here. Just gonna get the rest of it out of here. We're gonna knead the rest of it, like I said, by hand for a few more minutes. All right, so now that I'm done kneading this dough here, I'm grabbing my unsalted butter here, and I'm gonna butter the inside of this bowl here so it doesn't stick here. All right, so I've got my kneaded dough here. I'm gonna place it in this bowl, and I'm gonna go ahead and cover it and let this sit for about 45 minutes so it doubles in size. All right, so my dough has been sitting for, give it an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out. And what I need to do next is I need to separate about 300 grams of our dough here, and that's to make the bones. So I'm gonna grab my scale here, take out about 300 grams. Now, bones, you say. I'll explain that a little bit later on when we start putting this together and explain what that actually means. So in the meantime, I'm gonna get my dough here and I'm gonna separate it into 2 equal parts because we're gonna make 2 of these. So for one of my pieces, I'm just making it into a ball, put it in the palm of my hand, just push down with my thumb into the center just to bring it in a bit and make that ball shape. And once I have that ball shape, I'm gonna set it down here and then just shape it into a ball here. So for my remaining 300 grams of dough, I went ahead and dusted it with some flour, kneading it, working it in all the way. And like I said, this is for our bones. And like I said earlier, you probably asked bones. So the bones, Let me explain a little bit. So the roundness of the bread here represents the cyclical nature of life and death. The bones form a cross on top that represents the deceased, and then a center dough ball here represents the skull. So what I'm going to do is I'm separating these 300 grams into two, because I need two crossbones. And then I'm going to cut off a tip of this because I'm going to use that for, like I said, the skull. I'm cutting a tip off from each one there. So I have two even balls here. We'll set those aside. And then these right here, like I said, are crossbones that represent the deceased. So for the first one, really easy. Just gonna make it almost into a cylinder. Like I said, we worked it nice. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna place it down and get 3 fingers and just start rolling like this. So, not the prettiest looking bone, but it's gonna go right across the bread here. And then we're gonna make our second one. And then right at the center, like I said, on top, we'll put the skull here. Now, like I said, the roundness of the bread is the cyclical nature of life and death. The crossbones represent the deceased, and the top is the skull. We're gonna get the remaining egg with a little bit of water that we made a wash with, and we're gonna go ahead and just brush it over the bread here. And then we're gonna set these aside for about another 1.5 to 2 hours to let them rise once more. All right, so 2 hours later, and they have had time to rise a bit. Got my oven preheated at 350, and now I'm putting them in there for about 17 to 18 minutes. Okay, so our pan de muerto is done. I took it out of the oven and set it on this wire rack to completely cool. But now that it's completely cool, the last thing to do is use our butter that we had left over. And I melted it a little bit in the microwave. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this butter, and I'm just gonna brush it right over the bread here. Nice and even. And then after we're done brushing it, we're gonna dip this side into sugar. And that's what's gonna finish it off. All right, and look at that. That is our first one done there, and it looks delicious, smells great. Now, this is absolutely perfect to go with coffee or chocolate, which is usually what they serve it with, is with some chocolate. But of course, we do coffee in this house, so we're definitely gonna enjoy this in the morning with coffee. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a try. Pan de Muerto is served as a symbol of a way to pay tribute to the departed during the Day of the Dead. It fosters a connection between the living and the deceased, and it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it at any time though, because they definitely do serve this at some of those panaderias that you find all over the place. But again, something delicious to make, to enjoy with coffee, chocolate, whatever the case is. Delicious. But if you like this video, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.